All right, and we are live. Welcome back to another episode here on the Esports Economics Podcast. I'm your host, Tommy Clark, and I'm here with my good friend, Christian Gillespie. Christian, what's going on?
Not much, not much. Just enjoying this beautiful weather. It's been first nice day in a little while.
There you go. Where are you located out of?
I'm from Jersey. I'm right outside of Philadelphia, so the little town called Westville. So it's nice being able to get to Philly, but still have like the quiet life of suburbia.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I'm out in the LA area, technically Burbank, but I just say LA because it's the easiest thing, and we don't have winter, so it was below 60s last week, and that was cold. But I am jealous of you getting to experience the snow. But yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. For anyone who might not know who you are, what you do, just kind of give us the backstory of how you got into esports and ultimately marketing in esports.
Yeah, so I got started by trying to build my own company in the Philadelphia area. It was called Universal Gaming League. It was a
Okay.
activation company to run esports tournaments. This is about 5 years ago, right as esports was really hitting kind of a pinnacle movement. But it's like right before
Yeah.
Overwatch League happened, and one of the events we were running, we got reached out to by local host, or it was Nerd Street at the time, but we ran a charity event there, and that was my first time meeting Nerd Street, and I was like, wow, it was like just this little land center in Philadelphia, and they basically had been doing what we were looking to do, but they started about 2 years ago with like Fragadelphia and Cheeseadelphia. So I started doing contract work with them. This is right when the Overwatch League popped up, so I got to do some contracts for the Philadelphia Fusion, doing some observing, even got to cast a couple times, and then on the side I was building a contenders team. I wanted to build an Overwatch team that could go to compete in a LAN, and I built it with Mirage Gaming. I was the general manager there, and we actually won Open Division 2019, the season one. And then in that transition into the contenders team, we changed branding to Bermuda. We picked up Rusto as GM instead of me because he was a little bit more seasoned after coming from bye week. And then that's where I found my love for social media. And then, at growing with Bermuda, I moved on to Simplicity. And after I went to Simplicity, after a couple months, Nerd Street had an opening, and I had my opportunity to put an application, and I've been here for about almost a year and a half now.
Awesome. Yeah, that's quite the journey. And I know some people watching this might be kind of in that situation, working for an up and coming esports team or org. What were some lessons that you kind of learned throughout that process in terms of social media marketing for a team that maybe didn't have a massive platform like the Optics of the world, like the 100 Thieves of the world? Was there anything that you picked up during that time with Bermuda?
So I would say you learn a lot about what it takes to kind of grow a new brand. With Bermuda, it was a completely new identity that we were developing in the contender scene. You get the boost of competing in these different tournaments, so that these established accounts are adding you onto their whatever they're tweeting out about. You get the followers who are fans of the players, and you get to learn a little bit more about those little steps and those little moments where you see those giant growth points. And that was the biggest thing for me, is learning like, oh, okay, so this is how a team goes from 0 followers to 100 followers to 1,000 followers. And I will say that transition from being an Overwatch contenders like a social media manager to working at Nerd Street was it was night and day. It was a totally different shift. It was there's so much more responsibility that comes with that sort of level of social media management that I wasn't really I was privy to, but I wasn't really you can't. There's no way around it. You're gonna get hit like a wave with your first major full-time gig. So that's kind of what I realized, is that it teaches you some elements, but you'll never be ready for that first full-time job and the what it entails.
Gotcha. And before we kind of jump into what you're doing currently with Nerd Street, what are some of those things that help in esports or go from that 100 follower to 1,000 follower mark? Because I know a lot of people listening in, watching right now, are kind of in that category. So are there any takeaways there, or any strategies that you think could help in terms of taking that step from really ground zero to not massive, but having a decent sized following on a platform like Twitter, really any platform for that matter?
I would say community matters. Community is the biggest thing that you could
Okay.
harbor
Yeah.
and leverage. With Bermuda, we would hold watch parties. We'd invite people to our Discord to hang out. And I've met some people actually have gone from fans to people who work in the industry, and those connections were built because we made a platform where they could come and like kind of be a part of the same fun that we get of sitting in a Discord watching the team compete and play.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Now, kind of what you're doing currently, what does your day to day look like as part of the social media team for Nerd Street?
So it's always different, but it starts
Yeah.
out basically taking a look at my calendar, seeing what we have to get out for the day, seeing basically what events we have to operate, if we have anything specific that we're looking to market, because Nerd Street, we have what we call pillars, which are different elements of our company that help generate revenue as well as support the community. So the one that we're probably most known for is our events that we run. We run everything from Valorant to Rocket League to Siege. And that's one of our big activation points for community. But we also have our LAN centers, which is local host, which is our where we do our in-person activations, which obviously now is just it's only starting to really kick back up because of COVID restrictions lifting. But it's one of our pillars. So looking to make sure that we're hitting all those pillars, and working with the marketing team to make sure that any requests that need to get done get put in, as well as making sure that every other department feels as if they're being leveraged, like they're being able to leverage social in the way that they need to.
Got you. Like, how do you see LAN evolving as COVID kind of? I know we're kind of close to it going away, but like not really. But you get the point there. Like, how do you see it evolving when things start to get back to quote unquote normal? Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where the first person, like the first organization to run the NA LAN, like the big one, is always, they're gonna, no matter what they do, they're gonna be under scrutiny. Because we could be a year from now and we could run it, and because nobody else had done it before, the question always comes up, well, why are you the first? So it's definitely going to be a learning experience, because we're going to be dealing with new regulations, new procedures, things that weren't even a thought before COVID. So it's going to be definitely an interesting landscape. But I will say, once we have that opportunity to run those LANs, it's going to be, I think we're going to see not only just a huge surge in player participation, but in audience participation too. I think people who didn't go before, they now have FOMO of being like, oh, these people are talking about how great LANs were, like every single day on social. Like, I've never been. I need to go to one now.
Yeah, I mean, that's me. Prior to COVID, I have never gone to an esports LAN, and I'm really regretting that at this point. But the first opportunity I get, it's going to happen. So I could definitely see that. Now, speaking of audience, who is the target audience for a platform like Nerd Street? Because like for an esports org or a team, it might be a little bit more, I don't know if it would be broader or more defined, but I can imagine the audiences there are kind of different. So what is that target audience for you guys?
I'll go with what we've used as a motto for a long time, which is esports is for everyone, and that's exactly our target audience is everyone. We're targeting the professional player who's been at it for years. We're targeting the aspirant. We're targeting the parent. We're targeting the person who doesn't know what esports is. We're targeting even the people who don't even like video games. And the point is that we want to be able to serve a product that like products that fit what they're looking for. If you just like playing games and you're not competitive and you just really want to enjoy the games, come to local host with your friends and enjoy just a nice day of like playing some games locally without that pressure of competition. If you're looking for that pressure of competition, you go to the same facility on a Saturday and compete in a tournament. Esports, I think definitely some people pigeonhole it in something, and sometimes gatekeep. They want to make it so that it's something that caters to the people that are in it already. But I think that we're not serving ourselves if we're not expanding out and reaching out to those people who aren't necessarily part of the the in crowd yet. People who do like playing casually. Cater to what they want, and then slowly integrate them into your community so that you're building your community while still giving them something that they want.
Definitely. Now, in terms of capturing all those different demographics, like you said, esports is for everyone. So kind of making sure you capture everyone underneath that umbrella. What's the approach there? Is it like you approach different people on different platforms, like you serve a certain audience on Twitter versus Instagram versus email marketing or something like that? Is that kind of the approach you guys use to make sure you're reaching everyone you want to reach?
Yeah, I mean, Twitter is our biggest platform aside from now Twitch, which thanks
Yeah.
to Valorant we've hit a certain point, but we leverage all of our arms. Our email typically we'll send out a weekly update of like what you can play in, what you can see. We'll reach out to previous competitors and say, hey, we have an event we think you would really like to see coming up, and then local activations too. I think it's the biggest ones. Like we over the summer partnered with some colleges for different summer camp opportunities and some even pro works. Like I know we did the Spitfire summer camps for Overwatch, and when you start to do localized activations, you do hit that sort of more general demographic versus online where I can buy an ad and do a general ad. But if you're anything like me, which I'm in that sense, I am the competitive target versus the casual target, you're going to skip past that ad. So serving content that is agnostic is the best way to put it.
Got you. And then in terms of, let's see, there was something, it was on the tip of my tongue and it just completely slipped my mind. Give me one sec.
All good. It's your show.
Oh, I know what it was. I was going to ask you, what do you think that first step is in getting the person who isn't necessarily a competitive gamer or super up to date with esports currently into that ecosystem? Like you had said, kind of capturing them initially and then gradually showing them more and more esports content until they're an actual fan. What do you think that first step is? Like, what role does social media play in that process?
I think one of the great examples I can give is our TikTok that we've started to develop. I want to give a shout out to my colleague Olivia, because she is kind of she heads the coordination when it comes to our TikTok, and awesome, I deliver the content. So it's like we definitely are a great dynamic duo in that sense. But she's grown our TikTok from 0 to like 10,000, and I think the last 5 months, like we've had it for a while, but like only in the last 5 months have we really hit that sort of like let's focus and build this. And we generate content that is hits all avenues that we can. Valorant content is really hot right now on TikTok, which is surprising because you can only play it on PC. So you would think TikTok, you're more general stuff like Warzone and Fortnite, which I'm sure those are even bigger, but like the fact that Valorant is so big is really cool. But we'll serve a cool play that we saw, something that's like you don't need to be a super, you don't have to be someone who knows the scene, knows the players, know everyone. If you just saw it on your feed and you saw it happen, maybe it's in the form of a meme, which I love to edit video contents, especially into the TikTok trends. You'll just laugh and be like, oh, that's great, that's funny, I can relate to that. Or using our own staff. So we'll put it in front of people in a way that even if you're not a competitive gamer, you'll like it. And we've seen people like turn around and be like, what is Nerd Street? How do they have? Well, first off, the first comment's always, how are you guys verified? Which is like, anybody who's done TikTok for esports that has a check mark, it's the same thing. They'll say, how do you have a check mark? But that's the funny thing, is that that's a great jumping off point, because then they look into us and they're like, oh, you guys have a LAN center, you guys do tournaments. The next step for us, obviously, is looking at community engagement, doing, community pugs, doing community activations. That's what I would want to see. So, I think social media does a great job of getting in front of those users. And the next step is, what do we do with those users? Which before it was sending them to localhost. Now we're looking at online activations to get them to, even if they're not competing, playing in like, pugs or like, pickup games.
Yeah. What is it about Valorant, do you think? 'Cause I know you play quite a bit, and like you've said, Nerd Street's been able to capitalize on some of the popularity it's gained over the past several months. Why do you think it's taken off the way it has? And like, especially like you said on TikTok, that type of content seems to do well, even though it is a PC only game.
I think Riot is a big component there. I mean, I think I saw Gene Chorba put out a tweet recently that was like, at the beginning of the year they had one game, now they have five, and that's exactly it. Like they were known as kind of a one-trick pony. They had League of Legends for the longest time, and then they shifted over to TFT. They got TFT, and then they, now they have a wide array. They just released the Wild Rift, which is really exciting. But most, for the competitive shooter fans, they released Valorant, and it shifted a bunch of CS:GO talent over. They got a bunch of Overwatch League talent over, and like some of the biggest names from these different communities, and some of the Fortnite community as well. And I think that's also a big factor, is that they had such a huge exodus of pros from different games come over. So people just out of curiosity wanted to see what it is, and it's easy to watch. I think it's one of the easiest esports to watch, like compared to like Overwatch, which I'm a hardcore Overwatch fan. I come from Overwatch. I will openly admit, if you put Overwatch in front of somebody, the first question they're going to ask is, what the heck is happening? But like, Valorant's easy. Your goal is to shoot the person in front of you and then get the spike down. That's it. That's every single round. So it's easy to see when things are hype.
Easy to watch, very difficult to play. I've been playing over the past 1-2 weeks, and I'm so bad. I'm slowly improving, but it's a tough one.
Yeah, I love it. I've been, I started out, I was iron in the beta. I've gotten last season I was gold 3. Now I'm like sitting at silver 3, but I've also picked up a new agent, so it's a grind. But I've been loving Euro, and I haven't played today, but I saw they buffed them, and I'm just like, do you really want to give me more power? Like, do you really want to do that to people? But I'm excited after this play some Euro. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's just they make it easy. I would love to, I mean, I'll tell you what, if they add controller and console, Valorant will be one of the biggest games, I think, of 2021. And even though people aim lock,
I can see quite a bit of backlash if that were to happen, but I do agree with you.
It's accessibility is the biggest thing for me. I think it would help more than it would hurt.
Yeah, definitely. And as a controller player myself, I would really appreciate it, because it was kind of lessen that skill gap a little bit. Because I came from Call of Duty, so I just like jump around corners and start like sliding and shooting at the same time, and quickly realized that doesn't work so well. But no, that makes a lot of sense. And you'd mentioned a few minutes ago, you post quite a bit of memes. That's something you enjoy. I'm curious, like, what do you think is the anatomy of a good meme? One that does well, that's funny, but also tasteful. What's your approach to kind of taking a meme from concept to actual thing that's on the timeline?
So a lot of it's social listening, is seeing what's popular, what's hot, what's going on, and if you have nothing else, switch to SpongeBob. It's a joke. It's a joke, but it's completely serious. SpongeBob is like this evergreen sort of, like, you make a SpongeBob reference 2 years ago to now, it's still going to be relevant and fun. And I actually did that for one of the updates we did about a Valorant update. I believe it was players were complaining about doing seating matches. So it was a gif of Mr. Krabs and Pearl sitting there, and Pearl brings out the giant pill, and it says seating matches, and Mr. Krabs is pro players. And it is like, it's time for the pill. And it was funny. And that's the thing, is like, when it comes to being tasteful, I mean, it's using common sense, knowing, is this going to be offensive to somebody? Is this going to make somebody feel bad about themselves? So that's a big key of it. And then just that sort of like that quick cadence of catching their attention the first couple seconds, making them ask, what are they going to do next? And then completely blindsiding them with something that they didn't expect. Like, even if it's like, I love to do quick memes of plays that happen in tournaments. I almost like to, like, I challenge myself to see how quickly I can take a clip from a tournament, turn it around and turn it into a meme. And I think my most successful one was a TikTok trend, which is the, I don't know if you've heard the sound where it's just like, they're not going to know. They're going to know.
Yeah.
And it was Moose doing a defuse on the spike, and a player, that I can't remember what the player's name was, but just stands there and lets him defuse it. And he just does it. And like, I threw that sound over it. I did some quick cuts to like the mini map of the player, like literally just zoom cuts. And it did really well when I first posted it. And then on TikTok, it got like 250,000, views and like a ton of likes. And the funniest thing was, that was something I did within 5 minutes of seeing that play happen on Twitch. So like, being as quick as possible on the gun sometimes will help you leverage and kind of take control of the conversation.
How did you develop that skill? Is it something that just kind of came natural to you? Like you have a natural affinity to kind of see something and know like, okay, this will do well. Or is that something that kind of built up over time?
I think a big part of it was just like always having a interest in video editing, but like I never
Yeah.
was a strong enough editor to really make that my core passion. So I'm a jack of all trades. I've done a little bit of everything in my life. I grew up in a house of like an entrepreneur dad, so you learn that sometimes you need to learn a little bit of everything to be really good at one job. And I think social media is
Yeah.
the perfect job for jacks of all trades. You have to know video editing, sometimes a little bit of graphic design. Like we have a graphic design team, but I still sometimes if I get a template, I need to be able to use my best judgment to see, do I need to scale the text? Do I need to move this element just a little bit? So you shouldn't be, social media manager shouldn't be a graphic designer. They shouldn't be a video editor. But in another sense, they if they do that, they know that stuff, then that's great. So I, just taking times, if I see a meme that I really like, I'll break it down and say like, well, how did they make that cut? How did they make that like that edit? Most recently, I don't know if you know like the Dama Dene meme with like the deep fake where they'll take like a, it's that song from Yakuza where it's like Dama Dene, something like that. I'll send it to you afterwards.
Was
But
it what I think did you post a clip of that
I
recently?
I did. It was a couple weeks ago. It was with a teleport on Omen, and I turn around and there's Phoenix, and it's his face deep faked, and is doing that. And I was
Okay.
actually on my own. I put it on my own personal TikTok, and it got some
Yeah.
really good traction. But that took me about 40 minutes to learn how to do because like before that one app came out, you had to like actually
Yeah.
like use like algorithms and coding and stuff and like all this stuff that I wouldn't know. And now I know. Now I know how to do it, and now that's in
Yeah.
my reservoir. So too long didn't read it. You just like seeing a meme, learning how to make it, and then just adding that to your what you're able to do when you see something that's relevant.
Yeah, I agree. I'm in a similar position as you. Like, I'm by no means a great video editor. I'm not a good graphic designer, but like, I know the basics of Photoshop. I know the basics of Premiere. After Effects, ventured into it a little bit. Wouldn't say I'm proficient in it, but that does help in the ability to actually like execute on content ideas. And even if you're not the one personally executing on it, like if you have a graphic designer on your team or a video editor on your team, it can kind of help you explain the vision that you want a little bit more clearly, right?
Yeah, it's why there's storyboard artists, and then there's animators, and then there's like landscape design. Like like what if you might be someone who's really good at just kind of like, oh dude, I got this great idea, but I think that's the key, is the execution of the idea. Like there's millions of people out there with great ideas. Like I am guilty of all the time where I'll say like, oh, I have a really awesome idea, let's do it, and then if I don't follow through, then that idea, no, it was useless because we didn't
Yeah.
use it.
Yeah. How often does that happen in social media? Because I feel like, I mean, I'm in the same boat there. Like, there are a bunch of things I would love to execute on. But like, especially like working for a company, like you're not the only one that is involved in the actual execution of it. So, does that happen quite often where you have like an idea that that you think would be good, that you think would perform well, but just doesn't quite pan out?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is the coverage of tournaments for me, which is
Yeah.
why I'm looking to grow my social media team by hiring contractors, and and we have so many tournaments going on now that we're moving very quickly. I can't give the same sort of love, that like when I'm tweeting about Valorant challengers and we have like a Call of Duty tournament or a an FGC tournament come up, my priority shifts towards the one that gets the most engagement. But
Yeah.
that other tournament deserves the same level, if not more, care and attention to grow that community. So a big part of it is knowing what needs to get done but not having the resources to do it, and then communicating with my my director and my who everyone that I report to, and saying, all right, this is what we need to do and this is what we need to do to scale, so that there's a reasonable next step to what we need to do to really grow out what we're trying to build.
Yeah, definitely. And as part of that process, how do you go about presenting it in a way that's appealing? Because I know a lot of social media managers can be in that boat where you have the idea, you don't have the resources, and you know you need approval, but the communication of the idea just kind of falls flat and doesn't really get um, the traction it maybe should at those higher level positions. So, is there anything that you've picked up in your time in that position that's helped you kind of communicate your ideas a little bit more effectively, so you can actually get more resources to execute on them?
I think the biggest thing is finding out what they see as the most important need first.
Yeah.
You know, because what your immediate concerns are and what your immediate thoughts aren't necessarily, they might not be the same shared thoughts that they have. So, you know, having that sort of that line of communication and that sort of trust where, you know, you have to, you know, you have to be able to be a team player, and you have to really understand that, you know, for instance, if, you know, they have something that they see as really important that needs to get done, but you're either slacking on it, or, you know, you personally don't see the value in that. If you go to
Yeah.
them with an idea that you think has more value, and you say, well, this is more of a priority, you've already lost the conversation, because you've basically dismissed what their thoughts are, and you're telling them what, you know, you think is more important. And it's something that you know, I'm very lucky to have the director and the, you know, the leadership team that I have, is because, you know, we have an open line of communication where I can say, okay, here's what my concerns and here's what my ideas are. And, you know, we're able to work together to figure out, you know, what linear goals can we create to get to that point. So, you know, for me,
Yeah.
I said, I need a team. I need people I can work with. All right, then now I have, you know, I'm putting out applications for contractors and a, you know, social media specialist for the local host side. So it's, you know, and in that same vein, you know, they want to see me be more organized. I'm not just a content creator. I'm not just a memester. I have to, you know, like really build out what I'm building with as far as content calendar, scheduling, conversation. So, you know, it's that sort of like making sure that the priorities are being met, and then, you know, actually followed through. And then that's the best way to have that sort of line of success, is making sure that you're treating the leadership team as someone who does know what know what needs to get done.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I think that's
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's super helpful. I think that insight will help a lot of people watching. Now, something I noticed, like when scrolling through the Nerd Street Twitter, was that a lot of times you're kind of linking away to articles or videos. What are some things that you've picked up on in that sort of tweet that helps with click through? Because I know a lot of times, like, click through rate can be pretty low. So are there any best practices that you've picked up in your experience that have helped to kind of boost click-through rate when you're posting a link to an article, or a link, any sort of link that's taking the consumer off-site to a different platform?
I think with the articles that we've been putting out, we've seen the most success when you're putting out something that people care about and are really interested about. So with our most recent articles about game changers and the interviews that we've done, and masters and the interviews that we've done, it's information that people want to know, so that they click through and they see it, and then they're getting served the information they want to know. As for the videos, I do my best to, you know, help present that content in the best way possible. But as far as YouTube goes, the fact of the matter is, any platform you link out to, there, you know, your best growth will come from within. Your best growth comes from on the platform. You know, same thing with, like, it's like TikTok. Our TikTok has grown to 10,000 followers, and we never leveraged any other platform other than TikTok itself. And I think that's where the key lies there. And putting the link out is more letting people know that it exists. But even then, with Twitter's algorithm, it makes it difficult for any link. It's okay. I got two dogs of my own, so. But, you know, the algorithm itself adds a little bit of difficulty to getting that content seen. So just a wide shotgun of like, hey, this content exists, and if you're posting every single week, hopefully, you know, it'll start to pick up.
Gotcha. Yeah. Sorry about the dog. Captain loves to make appearances. If we have any returning viewers, I have no doubt they've heard him before. But no, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I've noticed the same thing with like my personal YouTube channel and the YouTube channel that I run for the company I work with. A lot of times linking out can help, especially early on, kind of getting some initial traction there if you're starting from like ground zero. But overall, if you can learn best practices for a specific platform and what does well internally, that's going to be the best play long term. So definitely agree with that advice. Now, in terms of finding the ideas that people care about, you had mentioned social listening earlier. What's your guys' process for that process of coming up with ideas that people actually care about, that resonate? Do you have any insight there?
Yeah, I mean, we're just a team of nerds. I mean, that's the best way to put it. We all have our different elements that we bring from all departments. You know, for instance, our, you know, our head of camps and youth development, Ben Beaver. He is a huge StarCraft fan. He is the biggest StarCraft fan. Might be the only StarCraft fan. I don't know. I haven't looked at the community, but no, he loves StarCraft, and that's his big thing.
Yeah.
And like, you ask him any question about that, he'll tell you, well, what the community's like, what they have going on that day, what tournaments they have coming up. And that's an element for like a lot of different people. Like for me, for the longest time, I was the Overwatch guy. I still kind of am. I still am connected to the community a bit, but anything that you needed to know about Overwatch, I knew the community. I could tell you about the community. I could tell you what needs to get done. Lots of CSGO people here can tell you all about the CSGO community. So it's really just a matter of leveraging the people at our company who have those connections and are participating in those communities, and leveraging that to our social advantage.
Awesome. Now, my next question is, what are your hot takes when it comes to social media? Are there any opinions that you hold that maybe are apart from the pack when it comes to those opinions? Are there any hot takes you have when it comes to marketing or social media or anything like that?
That's a difficult one, because I've had that. I've joked around on Clubhouse about like, let's do social media hot takes, but I don't think I really have that many hot takes. I think it's one of those things where once you're in it, like you figure out your process and you understand, what you need to get done. I think a lot of us, work ourselves to the bone, and there's been a conversation recently about the content. Specifically, it was the content intern over at the Rocker. I had a lot of thoughts and feelings on that one. But most specifically, I didn't look into it too much because, I just, there was so much conversation on it. My biggest thing is that, their process of the Gary V method of content development actually really piqued my interest. And I looked at that slideshow that they're providing about like what it means to have 15 pieces of content each day. It was actually really insightful, and it was something that it was a perspective that I was really interested to see. But I think, I don't really have a direction with this, because I think what's been everything that could have been said about the internship was said. And for me, the grind culture conversation that kind of came from that, I think is more what I was trying to lead into, in that we all kind of grind really hard, and you might have seen a lot of social media managers speak up against the grind culture. And I think it's not a matter of like speaking up against the people who do grind and the people who do put in like the countless hours, because I still do it. I burn out. I recently burned out a couple weeks ago. It's more of making sure that they're not being taken advantage of, and that who they're reporting to is putting them in an environment. Like my director probably tells me I need to step away from work more than she tells me I need to work, which is, in some other companies, they would just leave me on an island until I had a major catastrophe and then hire somebody else, So I don't know if that's a hot take, but with the grind culture, I guess like my hot take is, find a way that works for you, and then just make sure that your leadership team is supporting, not trying to, push you to the breaking point.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement with you there. I'm not sure if it was a super hot take. I think that's like the correct take though, because you see this argument. I mentioned this on a previous podcast, so we won't dive too deep into it, but you see this argument between people like on extreme ends of the spectrum when the answer is usually somewhere in the middle. Like, of course, you're going to have to work pretty hard to work your way up, and you're going to have to put in those hours, but at the same time, rest is important, and rest actually helps you perform better when you are quote unquote grinding. So it's not, in my opinion, it's not really the situation of one or the other, like you're in constant Zen mode, relaxing all day, or you're grinding all day. Rather, they work together and they're both necessary. So I agree with you on that point. Now, before we move on from the social media strategy conversation into more of like accessibility in esports and what we can do to kind of improve that, just a couple more quick general questions about Nerd Street strategy. The first one being, what would you say is your guys' brand voice? I know some social media managers might be watching right now, and that's usually a question that kind of piques everyone's interest. So if you're okay with sharing, what is your guys' approach to that?
So I like to call it cool awkward, where it's like you're still cool, you're hip with it, but you still have that little bit of awkwardness that comes with being a nerding gamer. So like, sometimes you might use the flushed emoji, sometimes the things that like are kind of like you know what I mean? Like never like socially awkward, but always just kind of like a friend, like, sort of like a someone that you want to gas up and really empower. So I've always kind of gone for like a cool, awkward voice, but it also differs from platforms. So like our Instagram is a lot more, chill. And this is something that Olivia's built, on her own, is very like, casual and just like kind of open, because most of that is pictures from our lands and pictures from previous tournaments. So, we want to make it just as open and welcome as possible. But for the Twitter brand voice, I've always gone with like the cool, awkward, and sometimes like, freaking out, like you're nerding out, like, if like we do a cool play, I remember I was talking to my intern Hannah about this, like, one of my favorite things to do is like, if something is just like, so insane, I'll put out a tweet with one word that's just like what, with all caps, and it's just like, like a fan would do, like, what, because that's what we are at Nerd Street. We're just fans of the people that compete in our tournaments. Like we're there to support, and like that's the biggest thing is, so I try to put that in the voice with what I'm developing.
Awesome. And then in your time as social media manager for Nerd Street, have there been any posts that you've put out that maybe you weren't the most excited about? You're kind of like, this is okay, but I don't think it's gonna do that great, but then just kind of surprised you and overperformed?
That's a hard one, if I'm being frank with you. And that's not to like pat myself on the back, but I think a lot of the times things like that happen when I have conversations with like Olivia, who's my she's our coordinator, our PR and social coordinator, and my director Paige, she's a little bit more on the non-endemic side. I don't like saying that anymore because she's been in esports for like longer than the last 2 years. So she just comes from a more industry side, and I'll have a conversation about maybe some copy or a post content that I'm like, I don't know if this is going to do too well, or like, but I put it out and it's like, oh wow, Noob Master. That's the best one. I have it. All right, that's it. I remember now. Noob Master. So Noob Master is a series that we have on TikTok, which when I posted on Twitter and Instagram, it didn't do too well. And I tried to do it justice. I did my best to do it, and it was not performing well at all on Twitter. And I was like, this is, like the way that it was being presented, I was like, we put the same content on TikTok, and it's probably one of our best performing series that we have on there. And even just seeing it on TikTok versus Twitter, I like it a lot more. And it's a weird how that works. Why do you think
that is?
I think it's just the type of content that it is. So like, if you haven't seen Noob Master, it's all like, I would say go to our TikTok and watch it. But it's basically this series of videos about this gamer, and his name is Noob Master, and he does these little tutorials. But like hijinks always happen. So like, there's one where he's just like, like, hey guys, I'm going to show you how to do a Sova arrow, and while he's doing a Sova arrow, it's raining and storming, and you can hear like the sounds of the rain, and then his dad comes in. He's like, did you close the window? And it's like the rain's starting to come in, and all of a sudden the roof caves in and water floods onto his PC and crashes his PC. Or like there's one where he gets a gaming mouse sponsorship, and like you hear like the mice in the background. It's like, what is that? That's the gaming mice. And you hear like the mice like sculling. They're all over, it's like stupid, like they're skits like that. But like it didn't work well on Twitter, I think, because like the way that it's presented to you is that when you see a video, you don't always sit there and watch it the whole way through. But on TikTok, you are when you sign on to TikTok, you're basically saying, I am watching videos today. So when you get presented with Noob Master, you sit there and watch the whole thing, and you're like, what the hell did I just watch? So long story, I think that's the best one. Is like, I did not expect that to do well at all. And then now like on Instagram Reels and on TikTok, it's one of my favorite things to watch. And I love it so much.
Awesome. Yeah, that does make sense. I think that just speaks to the importance of understanding the platform and like little intricacies that go on that maybe the average person might not notice, but as a social media manager, you kind of have to pay attention to, like the fact that, if you're on Twitter, you might click a video, but odds are you're just going to keep scrolling. But if you're on TikTok is literally the only platform that I can spend an hour and a half on and just uninterrupted, not bothered to look away or anything. That does make a lot of sense. Now, kind of shifting gears a little bit, or before we do that, is there anything we didn't touch on when it comes to the social media strategy with Nerd Street that you feel like is important to highlight?
I don't know if there's anything specific. I just think a big thing that people definitely should know is when it comes to social media that, I say it's hard and easy in the same sentence, because it's hard in that, like, mentally it can be straining to try and think of content every single day. And sometimes you're going to have good days. Sometimes you're going to have bad days. but it's easy in that if you take the time to understand the platform and understand what you need to get done, you can have those easy days where it's just like, all right, plug content here, focus on other projects. So I think that no two social media managers have the same job. I guess it's like my biggest kind of takeaway.
Definitely. And on that, what do you think, like in the future, as social media manager becomes a more and more respected role? Like obviously within our circle, we understand the importance of it. We understand that it's absolutely vital. But as it becomes even more, I don't want to say mainstream, but more just like, I don't even know what the correct word is, but hopefully you understand what I mean. What do you think that progression looks like from entry level up to like a senior level position in social media?
So I think it all comes down to your willingness to learn. There are some people in this industry that they almost tell that like, oh, I know what I'm doing. If I had that job, I would be successful. And it's definitely like, something I would say if you're somebody who's looking for a social media job, the last thing I would recommend doing is, especially even if it's a bad post, even if it's a post that's like, a terrible post, like commenting like, oh, I applied for this job weeks ago and they didn't give it to me, I wouldn't have done this. That's not going to get you the job. That's going to make the people who are over that social media manager get frustrated, and anybody who might reference you be like, I don't want the person who is publicly bombarding our company. When it comes down to it, building your skill set, understanding that while it's not all content and memes, understanding more that like you should come at it from a genuine approach, like learn what the company is looking for and then deliver on what the company is looking for. I live tweet a lot. Live tweeting is like one of my biggest tools in my belt, but Nerd Street has a lot of different moving parts that need to get done. So, while I do like to invest time in there, it's one of those things where I need to split my time. And at other companies, they don't live tweet at all, and they focus solely on delivering information. Some of them, they only live tweet. So it's if you want that job, is you need to start building yourself up, like I said, into the demands that are being put in front of you, and then learning what the person above you does so that you can start to build that skill set so that when they move up, when that vacancy is there, you're the best candidate for it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that'll help a lot of people watching. Now, kind of shifting gears a little bit more into the general topic of accessibility in esports. What do you think the current state of that is? Like, what are the glaring things that come up in your mind as far as opportunities to improve and make esports more accessible so it can become even more adopted like worldwide?
So I'm going to hit it from a couple different elements. I think the one that I'll touch on first is being a player in esports. Being a player in esports is already inherently a privileged thing to do because I'll talk specifically about games like Valorant and Overwatch.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be a Valorant or Overwatch player, you need to be able to not only dedicate time, but you'd have to have the resources of good internet, good PC, the time to be able to step away from work or school to invest into learning about the game, and then the connections that you build through playing these games to understand what you need to do to be a pro player. So, that's an inherently privileged opportunity. COVID did open up some accessibility because before there was a fourth element there, which was going to LAN tournaments. Because even if you had all three of those of internet, PC, and time, if you couldn't afford to go to LAN, then you wouldn't be a pro player because you had to go and compete in person. Like that was the number one thing that was said in CSGO. If it didn't happen on LAN, it didn't happen. So, and that was with console games too. Like you could have a console game, you could be your best local player, but if you can't go from Philly to Atlanta to keep competing the Atlanta tournament to earn your way to worldwide, then, you're not going to be a pro player. So with COVID, and I was talking with some people in Clubhouse about this, and there's pro players that say if it wasn't for the fact that Valorant happened online, they would not be pro players because they would have never been able to go to those lands. They would have never had an opportunity to prove themselves. So there's teams in Valorant right now that are pro teams that they might even live in a team house now that would have never existed if COVID wasn't a thing and Valorant lived on LAN. And that's something that's really interesting to think about because Valorant is the first esport to grow in an environment where people couldn't go and compete on LAN. So that's a big element too, is the, like the financial side of it. So making accessibility by putting PCs where people can use it, which is why we do local host, we open up PCs so that people can go and compete and practice and do what they need to do. But there are next steps there as well, because obviously in the COVID environment, while our locals are open now with restriction, there are still limits to time, and it's only going to lead to a more diversified stage.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the example that comes to my mind of a situation like that is, I mean, the Call of Duty League this season. I mean, I'm not sure how closely you follow it, but there have been quite a few players that have been called up from the challengers scene that maybe, I mean, they probably would have at least gotten a look before, but it might not have been as simple as just, hey, you're on the team now. Previously, like when LANs were the dominant situation. So yeah, I mean, you already see it, that the online events make it a lot more accessible. Obviously, there are pros and cons. Like, fans love LAN events. It's super fun to be around. The community aspect is great, but the online events are great in the sense that, yeah, it does open up more opportunities for players. Now, another thing that comes to mind on that conversation is mobile gaming. Have you guys kind of dove into that realm yet with your content? Are you keeping an eye on that at all?
It's something that we definitely really want to get into. We're trying to find the right way to do it. I can't really speak too much to it, but I will say from a personal aspect, I'm a huge advocate for it. People joke about it, especially in the esports realm. There's people who joke about like, mobile gamers, blah, blah, blah. I don't really like that line of thinking of like, oh, dude, mobile gamers, like they're not real. No, it's the same thing. I tell like, they're gamers. They're, if you can get a kid who comes from an environment where they can't afford anything but a phone and give them an opportunity to become something that they would have never been able to become because of their environment, that's massive to me. That's a huge, like, that's what we should be empowering, and not kind of putting them in a corner and telling them, they're just a mobile gamer. No, like, empower them, give them a platform, give them tournaments, and maybe one day they make the shift from mobile to a PC, and that'll be a decision they make. But we should always be looking at whatever opportunity and whatever tools that we can give people to be able to be something that, be a part of the community and be a part of a conversation.
Yeah, definitely. How about the information gap? Because a lot of esports have quite the learning curve. Like, personally, I'm pretty up to date on Call of Duty, understand that. Valorant, like you said, is pretty easy to watch. It's fairly easy for me to pick up, at least from a spectator perspective. But I mean, in games like League of Legends, it's intense. There's a lot to learn there. So what do you think are some important keys for overcoming that kind of learning curve? And even for a brand new fan to esports, something like Call of Duty or Valorant could still be pretty complicated. So what do you think are some things to consider when trying to kind of minimize that gap between not knowing about esports to, okay, I know about it, but not really sure, to actual fan who understands it and can follow along?
Yeah. So I personally one of the groups of people that I love to point towards are the esports parents, the people who are super active in being a part of the esports community. Just some specific people that I've had a great. I did an article for Mother's Day last year where I interviewed about 30 different moms of pro players. Nice. Yeah, and every single parent, like, their biggest thing that they would talk about is just like taking the time to understand and learn about the game. So, it does take time to become a part of the community. It does take some learning, but from there were some CDL moms in there that were like the same thing. Like, we just gave them every opportunity to succeed. It's that same element of being a part of the conversation, being open to being a part of that conversation. So for the parents, I would definitely just tell them to look to all resources that they can find and then talk to people. Like with LAN centers, it was great because I would help run camps. Like, I remember being one of the camp coaches before I worked for Nerd Street. I was doing camps with them and like getting to meet the parents and like talking to them about what their kids are interested in. Like, you could instantly see that shift. You start to see that shift from the first day that they dropped them off to the last day where the kid has been talking about it. They've been coming in, they learn. All of a sudden now they're a fan, especially when they come to like the Overwatch League matches. Like, they understand what's going on. So being able to be an open member of the community and explain to them what it is. And I think Riot does a great job too with their League of Legends Worlds broadcast of their and I think it's called the MasterCard Worlds broadcast, where it's literally just the casters explain every little thing that's happening. More broadcasts like that will make things a lot more accessible. But on our side too, like on the side of the TOs and side of the people producing the content, it's making the content like if you have to make a divide between the content, make that divide. The streamer content does really well, and it's a great entrance for people. Like they might like watching Shroud, but they don't know what pro esports is like. But now with like watch parties and stuff, they'll watch Shroud talk about the pro esports, and he might gas up a player, and all of a sudden you have someone who's a fan of Shroud or another popular streamer become a fan of the pro player of whoever the streamer is gassing up because they do something crazy. And those entry points are really great too, because it's entertaining and it's fun for the consumer.
Yeah, definitely. Now going into the rest of 2021, what's exciting you about esports, social media, the combination of the both? Are there any things that are really piquing your interest right now that you're really excited about going into the rest of this year?
I would say I'm hopeful, but I'm not going to be. I'm not going to hold my breath on LANs coming back. Obviously, there are some offline events that are going to be happening, but until you've been to a true LAN, it's very hard to kind of like expect that from like any event that's going to be happening within the next couple months. Like there's just something about going to a physical event where like there's tons of competitors competing. I think some of the best ones that I've been to, I'll say the best ones that I've been to that we've run were like the Overwatch ones, where the one I went to in LA, or the Fusion homestand. But I think another fun one that I went to that wasn't Nerd Street was the UGC Halo event in Atlantic City, going to that one and seeing a game Halo 3, which is like a relic if you think about it, but like still being competed, like a massive convention hall filled with people playing Halo 3 with this huge production set. Like that was in this old venue, just like when we did the Fusion homestand at the Met, which is 100-year-old venue. Same thing, the Atlantic City convention hall, you see this old architecture with Halo. It's like, it's crazy, but like the hype, the people there, the excitement, like, that's my biggest hope for 2021. And of course, the block, when our new facility in Philly opens up, I'm so excited to be going back to an office and seeing my colleagues once again. So I'm really excited. I believe we're targeting winter for the block opening, so that has me super excited to go into 2021, 2022.
Love that. Yeah, I'm with you. Like I said before, I haven't been to a LAN before, so first opportunity I get, I'm going to one. I'm super excited. I mean, just to see people in person and really experience that environment. Really looking forward to that. And now that we're kind of wrapping up the interview, just a few more questions. The first one being, if you want someone to walk away from this interview with one takeaway, like one key lesson, what would that be? I know it's a hard question, so feel free to take your time or take this any direction that you want to take it. But what would that takeaway be?
I think I'll touch on how to become a social media manager, because it was a good question. It's something people ask a lot. If there's one thing I could say that people should take away is, when it comes to getting into esports in general, it comes down to specializing in a skill. For me, social media is what I specialized in. I tell people, I tell this a lot, especially when I'm doing interviews for applicants. I tell them, when I applied for Nerd Street 3 times before I actually got a full-time job. I was rejected 3 times, and then finally I'm here. So, perseverance and having an idea. The other jobs that I applied for weren't a good fit for me. It wasn't what I should have been, doing. And when you want to work in esports, when you have a specialized skill, you'll be a lot happier versus when you're like just trying to get a job in esports. You'll be able to succeed. You'll be able to in esports, being a startup culture, you'll make it to places where in a traditional corporate ladder you might have never made it to. So find what you're passionate about, remove esports from that, and see if you're still passionate about it.
Love that advice. Yeah, I mean, I think esports, obviously it's an awesome industry. But I think a lot of people glamorize it a bit too much at times, to the point where they devalue themselves just to get a job they think is like the big break for them, which, hey, it might be, and everyone's different, like we were mentioning before. But I love that advice, because if you're happy doing something, whether it's in health and fitness or esports or I'm trying to think of another random field, any random field, you'll be happy. So I really love that advice. Now, the last question and the most important question, I mean, you said you've seen some of the interviews before, so maybe you see this one coming, but do you drink coffee? And if so, how do you drink your coffee?
I do drink coffee. I drink it any way it's presented to me because I can drink it black. I can drink it with creamer. If I have my choice, I will go as fancy as I can get. I'll get ridiculous. I'll put oat milk in it with maybe some flavored syrups that I have. Like I do love to have like an oat milk with caramel syrup in it and a little bit of sugar and whipped cream if I have it. So if I'm feeling like that, I'll do it. But if I'm waking up and I'm just like, it is 9:55 and I have my first meeting of the day at 10 a.m., I will drink that black coffee.
Yeah. No, I feel you. But Christian, I appreciate you stopping by. This is a super fun conversation. I know I learned a ton personally, so I know that whoever's watching, listening in all the way till the end also learned a ton. Where can everyone keep up with what you're doing personally as well as with Nerd Street?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter it's at puns and buns GG. I'm also on Instagram, same handle. I'm on Twitch, same handle. Makes it a lot easier. So that's puns and buns GG. If you want to follow the company, Nerd Street Gamers, it's Nerd ST Gamers. Yeah, and I post on my personals. I post a lot of esports gaming content, but I also do some beauty and fashion as well.
Love it. Well, again, I appreciate you coming on. And for everyone else who is listening or watching all the way till the end, I appreciate you as well. If you enjoyed this content, be sure to drop a like down below and subscribe if you're on YouTube. If you're on audio, whether you're Apple, Spotify, whatever the case may be, drop a 5-star rating and review down below if you haven't yet. Again, only if you enjoyed the podcast. And with that, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you in the next episode.